listening to the Viva El Birdos podcast with Jake Wood, Gabe Simons, and Scott Plaza. The Viva El Birdos podcast.
Welcome into the Viva El Birdos podcast. My name is Jake Wood, and I write for VivaElBirdos.com. I am the host of the show, and I'm joined by fellow writer Gabe Simons, and it is the return of Scott Plaza. Crazy to think that this is the first time we're all together since Heim Bloom back at the end of June. If you enjoy this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. We are available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all of your favorite audio streaming platforms. The Cardinals have won 4 series in a row after a disastrous 3-week stretch out of the All-Star break, and here to help us break it all down is a young Cardinal broadcaster with a very famous family lineage. Please welcome to the show, Stefan Caray.
Hey. Oh, it's been a long haul, bro. Gotta go home. Yeah. Oh, and I know you love the way that I'm gonna keep going. Yeah.
I'm so happy to be here, guys. Wow, this is so much fun. I think this is the most people I've ever done a podcast with, so I'm looking forward to a great conversation and talking some ball.
We certainly do like to pack it in here, though you have managed to come on the right night because it has been kind of lean over the July month. Thanks, Scott. Never mind. Anyway, moving on. Stefan, you shared on social media a text thread between you and your dad in relation to the Baez bomb bonanza that occurred at Wrigley Field on Saturday. You asked him, where does this game rank for you? And he said number 1, something that had never been done before. Not only was Baez's performance incredible to witness, but can you add to the gravity of the performance and what Josh Baez's arrival means for the length and respectability of the Cardinals lineup?
Yeah, first off, I want to address, Jake, your amazing alliterative ability to be able to say the Baez bomb bonanza. That was really, really good stuff. But no, I think it really was a special day yesterday. We got to see the emergence of potentially a superstar, something that's never happened in Major League Baseball history. And I've been talking about it over the last few days, even weeks, that the number 5 spot in the order has been a chink in the armor of this Cardinals offense. It has not been helping players like Jordan Walker. He hasn't had protection, and for him to do what he's been able to do with no power threats hitting behind him more often than not, sometimes it's Mason Wynn, sometimes it's Lars Nootbaar, other times it's Nathan Church, you're not as worried about those guys as you are Burleson or Walker or now even Josh Baez. You get to see better pitches. They're going to pitch you differently, and we saw an example of that today. Walker, a 4 RBI game. Burleson, a 4 RBI game. They're the only pair of teammates in Major League Baseball with 80 or more RBIs. So take what Baez is able to do out of it, because I think the sky is the limit for this guy. What he will do to help lengthen this order and be able to give options to Ollie Marmol to be flexible with his 7 through 9, I think really transforms what this team can do offensively, and quite frankly, through his first 2 games, we've seen it.
I think out of deference to Jaden Daniels, the Cardinals just opt to make the number 5 spot, a little less impactful, just to respect that. Gabe, I want to throw it over to you. Alec Burleson has been on an absolute tear since the middle of July. In his last 29 games, he's hitting .327 with a .410 on base and a .542 slugging percentage. That's a .952 OPS, a .215 isolated power, and a .162 WRC plus. In this recent span, Burleson has been a nightmare for opposing pitching in this last month or so. That's also not including today's 3-hit, 4 RBI performance in Chicago. You recently wrote about the prospect of signing Alec Burleson to an extension, and I have to say that he's making you look very smart for doing so.
I mean, it's pretty easy to look smart when you say obvious things. I just think he is going to be very hard to replace if they want to move on from him, especially his ability to hit right-handed pitchers. And I don't want to take it for granted that Ivan Herrera, who would presumably be his replacement if they decided to move on from Burleson, take it for granted that he could just play first base and step in his place. I just think if you look at his stats compared to Josh Naylor, he should have a very reasonable deal ahead of him, especially with 2 arbitration years baked in. I don't know. My only question is kind of why hasn't it got done yet? I understand maybe from the Cardinals' perspective because first base is one of those positions where you don't want to lock it up too long because in theory it's easy to replace because anybody can play first base, that type of thing. But not everybody can hit like Alec Burleson. And I would love to watch him for the next 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years if we can, because I really like how he has advanced as a hitter specifically. He's gotten a lot better over the years. He learns when to swing and when not to swing, which was the problem when he first came up. And it's going to be I think we got a little spoiled by him in a little ways because some of us may take it for granted that Nathan Church and Blaze Jordan will do the same thing, and that is not by any chance a guarantee that those guys will make the same improvements with being able to lay off pitches, because maybe they'll have to sacrifice some other part of their game in order to do that. Usually there's a trade-off when you do something like that. But Burleson, it was just as simple as I'm just going to make sure to wait for my pitch to swing at, and then I'll do damage on it. And now he's walking at a normal rate, even above average. And I want to reward that kind of improvement that he's able to do, and I expect him to be able to keep it up for at least a few more years.
Yeah, we'll get into the Blaze Jordan of it all here in just a little bit. You mentioned his name, but I did want to throw it back over to Stefan really quickly. Stefan, what are you seeing from Alec Burleson this year? And, just my real quick opinion on the matter is I wonder if the Cardinals are just holding back on a Burleson extension until they see what this next CBA potentially looks like, if that becomes a factor. Stefan, are you in favor of an Alec Burleson extension at this point, or do you think the Cardinals are handling it the right way and deferring that to once there's more information down the road?
Yeah, I think I can say both to that question. I think I'm in favor of a Burleson extension, but I also think the Cardinals are handling things the right way. And the reason why it hasn't been done yet is simply because Alec Burleson's 27 years old. They want to make sure he is a player that will be a fit for when this team is going to win the World Series or push for a World Series. He wants to be part of this core, and I think he certainly can be. There are some options in the minor leagues that the Cardinals might look to. A guy named Jack Gurovich comes to mind. He was a draft pick from just a few years ago. He has 24 home runs in the minor leagues. Now, I'm not saying that you can replace that level of production from Alec Burleson. He has been as consistent as they get at the major league level, as Gabe was outlining, and we're seeing it, especially over the last 30 games. When everybody else was slumping, Burleson kept his foot on the gas pedal. A big reason for his success, too, is he's probably the best bad ball hitter in baseball. He hits pitches that are well outside the zone. He can cover a large amount of the plate. And when we've seen him struggle is when he falls into the temptation of hitting bad balls because he knows he can do it. That's when you start to chase a little bit. So I look at Burleson especially as a silver slugger, potentially gold glove caliber first baseman. And we even were talking about it today. Name 4 better first basemen than him in the sport right now in 2026. Name 4. I can name 2, Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson, but name 4 that do what Alec Burleson does and means as much to their team as Alec Burleson means to the Cardinals. Can we do it? I don't know. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts.
I think I would throw Nick Kurtz in there, probably, as
He's
another
hurt.
name. Oh, yeah, okay. Your words were currently, right? So I guess
Yes,
that's
currently,
where okay.
in 2026.
Would Contreras be better?
That's probably another one.
It's close, but Contreras is 35, and for the amount of money that
going
he's
forward,
so
for sure.
I'm thinking if you look at weighing these players together, I look at Freddie Freeman as the most consistent player in baseball. He's going to hit 300. He might hit 20 home runs. He's going to have 80 plus RBIs, and he's going to play excellent defense. Matt Olson's going to have a 40 RBI plus season. Guerrero is down this year. He's not playing well. Ben Rice is having a really good season, not hitting for average or having as many RBIs as Alec Burleson. He's an RBI off the major league lead right now. So it's just tough for me to see somebody that I would rather have at that position at 27 years of age than big number 41.
Most of the guys. No.
Ooh, he's really he's poking the bear a little bit, but that's a good point.
I was gonna say most of the guys who are having a better year by like OPS plus or something are older than Burleson by quite a bit. So I would say going forward, certainly Burleson is one of the better bets, top 5 certainly in baseball as a first baseman. I'm at Sal Stewart and Great American Ballpark. No, thank you.
Murakami is a name that comes to mind. I know that there's some head case things that revolve around this name, but Rafi Devers is having an outstanding season regardless of position change and everything that how Boston poorly handled him. But that's probably another name I would throw into the mix there. But Stefan, I think you're right. I think you're correct. There are not many names that you can comfortably say are outperforming or outpacing Alec Burleson this year. Now, we come back to our long-lost brother in baseball, Scott Plaza, and kind of playing the role of villain. It's good to talk to you, though, man. Welcome back. I hope your summer's been super fun.
Well, it's officially over. We went back to school last week, so the last month with 2 daughters was basically getting in as much as we possibly could. So good to be back, and good timing as well.
Yeah. I had brought up to you last week a scenario. We kind of decided to hold off on having this conversation until the podcast, given what you had been seeing from this team recently. If the Cardinals had will add 2 power bats to lengthen their lineup and 1 pitcher capable of pitching, let's say, a number 3 starter in a rotation, how much would that increase your level of buy-in on this potentially being a playoff team?
Well, and I believe my answer to this was unfair, and I cheated, and I'm still sticking with it because I've been saying it since the beginning, since I started over here at VEB, was if they kept Contreras and kept Sonny Gray and then also added Dustin May, how fun and cool this lineup would be because of what Contreras has been able to do at first base. And then, obviously that has a trickle-down effect of my thought was Burley, switch back to left field, DH with Herrera and stuff like that. And then that lineup gets even longer, and then here's Jake's second power bat of Joshua Baez coming up, and then that makes it longer with the team control, and then whatever you want to do with Contreras at this year's deadline. It was just an interesting. I just also love Wilson Contreras, but and then just seeing what Joshua Baez did, the power is legit. While it's probably Stefan, like you said, it was your dad's best game he's ever seen. Lowest game for me was giving up 3 home runs to the same guy in one of my last ever pro starts. So I could feel for Matthew Boyd on that one, but very, very happy to see Joshua Baez show exactly what we were going to see from him both yesterday and today.
We're gonna get into the names of it all, but I wanted to start the conversation just so we could have something to tether back to. Stefan, I do want to throw it over to you real quick, and then Gabe, I'll hit you with the same question. If you could add 2 power bats, this was before Josh Baez, his recall. If you added 2 power bats and 1 pitcher capable of pitching like a number 3 starter, is that something that would enhance your buy-in to this team making a real push at that final playoff spot?
Oh, you're talking about this year or just a job? Because of course it would. I mean,
this year
we have some positional need. Third base comes to mind immediately out of some stability at that position in particular. Center field has been a really good experiment this year, and we're finding out exactly what Nathan Church can do. And he can more than handle his own out there, but I think on a really great team, he's a 4th outfielder that can play all 3 positions. They need a veteran clubhouse guy. They need the guy that was, for the Braves, Nick Markakis, when they were starting to really develop Ronald Acuna and Austin Riley and Ozzie Albies. They need one of those players to teach some of these young guys how to be major leaguers. And again, we've already seen what one of your prospects with some power can do to lengthen a lineup. Imagine another one of those guys that instead of having 5 really threatening bats in the order, you have 6. And you can kind of sprinkle in a guy or 2 at the bottom of the order and hide them with all that power and all that potential. And having one more starting pitcher, ideally a lefty, would be huge. It'd be great. We saw what Hunter Dobbins did today. Hopefully Quinn Matthews can follow up with a good start tomorrow. But I think there's no doubt that if this team had a couple more pieces, especially seasoned veteran pieces, that they would go on a run. And I'm not saying that they won't right now. They're getting hot at the right time in front of the right teams.
I think Stefan's ability to cleverly deduce the direction that I'm going with this has been solved. But before we move forward, give your quick thoughts on if the Cardinals added, let's say one more power bat and a number 3 starter at this point because we already have one of the 2 bats.
Are you pushing your Nolan Gorman propaganda right now?
We'll get there. All right. I just want to hear your answer
I
first.
think that's the other power bat you're referring to. I mean, depends.
Propaganda.
I mean, whatever. We could dispute which wording we could use there, but I think the 2023 version of Nolan Gorman certainly would give a huge boost to this lineup, no doubt about it. And if Joshua Baez, can have 5 to 10 homers for the rest of the year, just run out a number. I don't know what the exact number would be. Of course, because they'd be replacing kind of the weak hitting Nathan Church and who would Brian Torres or Jose Fermin. I mean, those guys have no thump. I like those guys. They're good utility guys, good bench players. But yeah, when they come up, if you have multiple of those players in your lineup, you're like, it might be a struggle to get runs today because they're just going to hit singles, which is sometimes fine, but you can't have 5 guys in a row who their biggest threat is to hit a single or walk because you usually don't do those 3 times in a row. And is your number 3 starter in your hypothetical Quinn Matthews or Cooper Jerpy?
Quinn Matthews.
Quinn Matthews, okay. Would Cooper Jerpy be your dominant reliever who could boost the bullpen maybe?
I'm not against a Cooper Jerpy call-up in September, but he, for me, if I'm playing it conservatively the way I think the Cardinals are going to handle it, he's not a factor until 2027.
Okay. I think he had a really dominant outing this time, but I would, my stance. I would bring him up in September too, to be in the bullpen to see how much stuff plays right away, at least in the bullpen. I wouldn't make him a starter. By the way, Scott, we wouldn't have Dobbins if we kept Contreras. That probably isn't an issue with you, but we would be losing one of our starters right now if we kept Contreras.
Yeah, and have 30 homers and 90 RBIs.
And we'd have terrible defense in left field. But and we wouldn't have Joey Fajardo either. That dude is looking amazing.
Yeah, we're talking trickle downs here, Gabe. I'm talking way back to
I know you're talking.
He's got the AJ Preller. He doesn't care about the minor leagues. He just
F
wants
them
to
prospects.
Major League level.
Yeah.
But no, I agree.
The return for Contreras has actually worked out really well. It's a good.
I agree. It's 100% the right move. I just miss him so much.
Oh yeah, I get it. It's the Sonny Gray one where everybody got hurt. That one is a little bit more unfortunate. Yeah. But I think my stance towards the playoffs is probably different than a lot of people listening to this, which is that if you get in, anything can happen. I firmly believe that. I don't think there's this thing where just because you don't have is it likely? Absolutely not. But I experienced 2006. I experienced 2011. 2006, people forget how bad that rotation was. It was bad. They performed okay in the playoffs. That's kind of the point where, Hunter Dobbins could pitch like an ace for 5 starts or something. So you get in, anything could happen. So of course I think if you get 2 power bats and a number 3, then our odds are improved. But I still believe it's possible. Likely, no.
I guess where I'm having a hard time with the 06 and 11 comps, just to go down this quick rabbit hole, if you're looking at the Cardinals lineup specifically, forget the pitching altogether. Who is your Pujols, Roland, and Edmonds? Who is your Pujols, Holiday, and Berkman? Who are your 3 legitimate aircraft carrier bats in the middle of your order that can help you overcome some of the best pitching in the National League in the playoffs when it's set up? I see, but I don't think that those 3 are on. I don't think that Herrera, Burleson, and Walker are on the same level as those 3 at the prime peaks of their careers were.
Sure, because they're talking about Hall of Famers and then borderline Hall of Famers. I get that. They're all in the beginning of their careers. Not that they're going to do the same thing, but their bats are good enough to drive an offense because they are driving the offense right now.
We also need to compare it to 2026 teams, not 2006 and 2000.
Well, I think the important point that was made earlier was that the pitching in 2006 wasn't all that great going into the postseason. Well, let's look at our starting pitching metrics. They have the 4th best starting pitching ERA in the National League. The question that we always seem to knock around in the broadcast booth before what feels like every series is who starts a wild card game number 1 for you right now.
Yeah.
Is it Kyle Leahy? It's hard to say yes because he's already reaching an innings limit. Is it Andre Palante? Tough to say also because a year ago all of us were kind of moaning and groaning when Palante was taking the ball. So, I mean, we are really in sort of unexplored territory, and that's what makes this season so much fun. And to your point, Jake, talking about all of the different permutations and moves that this team could make with the expanded rosters on September 1st, one of the ones that I'm really looking at, and I know it's going to shock people, is Leo Bernal. He is a player that I'm so intrigued by. He, to me, out of all the catchers in the organization, is the one that I feel like could be the everyday guy. Mm-hmm. He has the defensive skill set. He's a switch hitter. He can hold his own at the plate. And even if he gets you 230, 240 with good defense, that's better than what we have right now. And I'm not suggesting that Jimmy Crooks can't also find a role on this team. There are weird conversations in my mind asking, do we put a third base glove on Rainiel Rodriguez, teach him how to play over there? Because we're so catcher heavy in the organization. I think there are just a lot of different things that the Cardinals can do, and the depth that they have is a very wealthy commodity that they possess that they haven't had in years past.
Well, Stefan, I mean, you touched on, you're among friends here when saying that about a Leo Bernal. I think that we all universally have the same opinion. We truthfully believe that Leo is the immediate future at the catcher position. Now, there are also our good friend Kyle Reese and others who evaluate prospects say that there's no reason at this point to say that Rainiel Rodriguez could not stick at catcher long term. And I know that there's the element of getting the bat here as quick as possible, but you think about what Cal Raleigh did last year. Now, I'm not saying that Rainiel Rodriguez ultimately becomes Cal Raleigh. Probably two different hit profiles altogether, but that kind of value from behind the plate, a guy who can do everything, like that is incredibly valuable, and I can imagine where the Cardinals would want to keep him at catcher for as long as possible until they are unable to continue to do so. But to kind of go back to my previous point, I wanted to remove names from the profile and speak in broader terms only because of the names that I do have in mind. One of them is exceptionally polarizing in Cardinals fans' eyes, and for the rest of 2026, he could wind up being the Cardinals' best option down the stretch. I'm speaking, of course, of a Nolan Gorman. Gabe properly sussed that out. Gorman... Because you have, I want to ask Scott this question first, because you have a particular monetary investment in some numbered Nolan Gorman cards. I assume that you could be, persuaded to lean my direction. And I don't know if you guys can see the numbers on the screen that I have up there. Since July 18th, 22 games, so it's 3 weeks of sample size now. I know there's been some significant pushback. Oh, this is just another Nolan Gorman 1 week hot stretch. It'll go away. This is 3 weeks now where he's slashing 241 with a 368 on base and a 595 slug. He has a 963 OPS, a 354 isolated power, a 141 WRC plus. He's striking out below 30% of the time, and he's walking at a 16% clip. So, Scott, we've already seen the Josh Baez jump up here. Now imagine if we could add a Nolan Gorman to this element, assuming he continues on this pace that he's kind of going at. You start to look at this lineup 1 through 6, kind of like what Stefan had alluded to, and you start to realize that, yes, there is some volatility. Yes, there is some swing and miss, but yes, there is the fear factor of being able to have some legitimate thump and juice in the middle of this lineup to where the guys at the top of the order, not only is it not all on their shoulders now, but also you can't just pitch around those guys and you have half a lineup to worry about. This starts looking like something that can really do some damage.
Yeah, I will never not love Nolan Gorman, whether or not he pans out. I always believed in the light tower power, his ability to play second base, and have that flexibility, whether it was good to the eyes or not. He still did it. His third base defense was grading well this season so far. I just wanted him to hit 220. Like, that's all I was looking for. He could really even get to that point. So. If this Baez kid is for real, no, I'm just kidding. I do love prospects and I do love Baez. I think it's going to be amazing.
Which one?
Yeah, exactly.
Fair point.
That's the other thing is that
Jay Baez.
Jay Baez. My column today for Viva Alberto's was talking about how Baez's spot in the lineup, whether it is the fifth spot or not, how that takes the pressure off the need to find a third baseman right this second to provide the other Jay Baez time to establish himself. I know they're trying to have him stick in the middle infield, but third base, hey, if you want to get in the majors, let's do it and do it over there. But for the short term, putting Gorman in where we wanted kind of Nootbaar to settle into in the 7 or 8 spot, and then let Mason Wynn be able to be kind of in that 8 or 9 spot wherever he should end up being as a hitter. The lineup, we're homers for sure, but like that lineup, you can put it up against on paper what should happen and put it up a bunch of against the other teams, and then just figure out the pitching a little bit. I have confidence in that lineup. I had confidence in that lineup kind of with that makeup coming into this year. And I think that the core 4 is for sure there and could easily turn into a 5 or 6 in the next year.
Yeah, Stefan, your thoughts, you kind of sussed it out earlier is like, yes, so Josh Baez and Nolan Gorman, 5-6, slot them in behind the top 4, and then Quinn Matthews was the other name that you slyly kind of alluded to being a lefty. I like you, the very professional way that you did that. Your thoughts on, reinstalling Nolan Gorman at third base and kind of seeing what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of work for STL Sports Central, which is one of the podcasts here in town, and one of the things that I've said and I've stuck to throughout the course of the year is that there are pieces in the minor leagues that can keep this team afloat, and maybe not just keep this team afloat, but help them blossom at the end of the year. I'm a huge fan of Nolan Gorman's, big fan of the player, big fan of the potential, but even reading those numbers, it's 241 at AAA, and all of the good AAA pitchers are in the major leagues. And this is a year where if you talk to anybody around baseball, they say AAA pitching is worse than it's ever been. So if all of the good AAA pitching is up at the major leagues, and all of the AAA pitching that was there at the beginning of the season is now also at the major leagues, you're facing AA pitching, and you're still striking out close to 30% of the time. That raises a lot of red flags for me, considering the fact that Gorman has carried like a 33% strikeout rate in his major league career. The whole point of having a guy like Baez is he's really, really threatening at the plate and can still hit for average while also hitting for power. Yes, he's going to strike out a ton, but not nearly to the degree that Nolan Gorman is. I don't think that Blaze Jordan has nearly the power potential that Nolan Gorman has. There are very few players that do. But Blaze Jordan's superpower is he doesn't strike out. He doesn't. He puts the ball in play. And if you notice how Ollie Marmol likes to assemble his lineup or make late-game decisions, he likes those high-contact players like Jose Fermin, like Brian Torres, like Blaze Jordan in those spots with runners aboard. There's nothing more frustrating than runners on second and third, 1 out, and a strikeout. And that is the concern with Gorman. Now, they've done a lot of things to work on his swing plane, because for a long time, it was one swing, same plane. He was going to hit only one type of pitch in one type of spot. I'm glad to see he's made some adjustments, but I don't know if Nolan Gorman is the future at third base, and I also don't know if bringing him up really re-energizes this lineup any more than it already is.
Yeah, this is purely for 2026. My assumption is that moving forward, Nolan Gorman is no longer a factor on this team. I think the Cardinals pretty well have it in stone with the idea of the direction they want to go. Scott referenced, I think Jesus Baez, once he makes his ascension to AAA, I'm fairly confident we'll see a healthy dose of him at third base at the Memphis level once that kind of happens. But being in AA, I don't think there's anyone that's at the AA level that's a shortstop that's particularly enticing. So just leave him at the premium position now while he's still developing. I don't have any problem with that. I did want to go to your Blaze Jordan point that you had made really quickly and just kind of push back slightly on him. Yes, he does not strike out, but he also chases outside of the zone at a 35% rate, which is I don't know, bottom 25 percentile in Major League Baseball. So, yes, while he's not striking out, he's also not picking out the correct pitches to do damage on, which also is hurting this team. And you'll notice the ground ball rate is very high as well. Let me see if I can find that really quickly. But I think, okay, here we go. His ground ball rate is 47.3% this year, which is almost 4% above league average. Like, above as in, like, worse than league average. So he's below average in that. So he's at a greater rate of ground balls, which whenever he's coming up at the back end of the lineup, traditionally he's having runners on in front of him. It's a lot of double plays. It's ending a lot of innings. So from a position like third base where you need a lot of slug, you need a lot of production, I get that it's still a fairly small sample size, but the sample size that we've gotten has not been wholly impressive whatsoever, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I get it, but do you think that he has been more impressive than Nolan Gorman in 2026, yes or no? And I'd rather have a guy that chases strike 2 than chases strike 3 35% of the time.
I guess I would ask the question, what's more valuable, an inning-ending double play or Jose Fermin coming up with 2 outs and a runner at first?
Yeah, but
the ability to continue the inning on regardless, as opposed to...
Right, so,
now, I want to also make sure I frame it that neither are ideal. Right?
No,
like, I'm not
course.
saying one or the other is better, but what would I rather have, an inning-ending double play or, my 8-9 hitter coming up with 2 outs and the ability to kind of continue to string it along and maybe they get back to the top of the order. And I think this is a larger conversation about, some of the struggles that Ollie Marmol is having in putting together a regular lineup and getting consistent offense to continue.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with your point. Look, looking at the ground ball statistics, they haven't been great. I mean, that's certainly something that you look at with Blaze Jordan, but not all ground balls end up as outs. Not all ground balls end up as double plays, especially with runners in scoring position. So there have been myriad times where you can look at Blaze Jordan, runners second and third, he grounds out to short, brings home a run. There's just that ability to generate runs that is still productive, maybe not in the way of slugging the baseball. We finally saw him hit that second home run of his season, and I think it was infectious. Seeing what Joshua Baez did, but I don't know if we need to replace a guy that has been steady and really has stabilized at least that spot in the order comparatively to the predecessor. And again, I love Nolan Gorman, and I hope that he figures it out because he's a great human being and really a hard worker. But we're going back to that same mentality of the what if. What if Nolan Gorman can do this? Well, the guy has had plenty of at-bats at the major league level, and he still hasn't done it. So if we're going to stray from the guy that we know, at least in the small sample size that we've seen, can do enough to not hurt this team and can help the team at least a percentage of the time versus the guy that was hitting below the Mendoza line and striking out 40% of the time, I think we're just really, really reaching and not being appreciative of maybe the strides that we've made in our player development system.
And to support the Blaze Jordan position, I will say a couple points, which is, number one, there's a higher probability, and Jake, you even agree with this, that Blaze Jordan is the future at third base than Nolan Gorman. So why not keep going with the guy who might be the future when I don't know which is more likely to end up giving you what you want. I mean, you want power, clearly, so Gorman's more likely there. But as far as, like, overall production, I think they're probably about equal as far as the more likely to start being above average hitter or something. And then the other point I would say is Blaze Jordan has played well defensively at third, surprising, I think, most people, because his defensive reports were not encouraging. And he looks a little stiff out there, but the numbers so far are positive. His batted ball stuff is suggesting a better hitter than he's been. He's got a 315 ex-WOBA, for example, and that means that stuff might not be falling or whatever. And I don't know how much that's trustworthy, but he's hitting the ball hard enough to warrant a better performance than he's gotten so far. And I don't see why we wouldn't keep giving him chances, because is he likely to be the third baseman in the future? Probably not, but he's more likely than Gorman, certainly, who we're probably moving on at the end of the year. And another point I would say would be that I don't love the idea of Jimmy Crooks, Joshua Baez, Nolan Gorman being back-to-back-to-back. There's 3 high K guys in one lineup. I don't know. That's a little risky if if you try to run all those guys in the same lineup, I just feel like you're going to see a lot of strikeouts most nights if all three of them are in the same lineup. I don't know. I'm surprised to be taking the Blaze Jordan position, believe me, because I've always been a Nolan Gorman guy, but I just think you got to somewhat look to the future, and then Jordan isn't really hurting you right now, and I don't know that Gorman's more likely to help you.
If I can continue up, sorry, I was just going to respond to what Gabe said on this. Is if you look around baseball, there aren't a ton of teams that are looking at their third baseman as their main power threat anymore. I mean, it really, you guys are very deep into the analytics. I'm much more old school, so that's typically a position that I would take is, hey, third baseman needs to be your slugger. Well, let's look around the division. The Reds use Brian Hayes, not a power hitter. The Pirates use Nick Gonzalez, not a power hitter. The Brewers use Joey Ortiz, not a power hitter. So when you have plus power in your order, you have 20 plus home run potential at catcher in second, you have 20 home runs at first, you have 20 home runs in right, you have a potential for a 30 plus home run guy in left if he played the full season. I mean, that's 5 guys that are going to get you 20 plus home runs. I mean, that can shadow and cover a guy like Blaze Jordan pretty easily. Now, ideally, you'd like everybody to slug, but if we are really desperate for slug, I'd understand that. But this team has actually hit for a lot more power than I think we would have expected. And the fact that Blaze Jordan is at least hitting for average and not a 175 hitter that doesn't do any damage ever, I think really speaks to what he's been able to do. I mean, he leads the team in triples. So, we're getting some things out of him that maybe we wouldn't have expected in 2026.
I'm just going to keep hammering Jake home on this, that the Blaze Jordan train is the way that it should be going right now. Because while like the ground ball numbers aren't phenomenal, I'm looking at his like situational numbers. Runners in scoring position, 42 at bats, he's hitting 333. Yes, he only has 1 homer, but a 795 OPS. He only has 3 strikeouts, so he's putting the ball in play there. Yes, runners on first base, he's hitting 280. So again, he's still putting the ball in play, the opportunity to do something, and he's doing it from the 8 spot. He spent almost 100 of his at bats in the 8 hole. With who it's been hitting in front of him, Prieto, Torres, Church. Like there's really been not that many guys on base, and if they are, there's probably 2 outs already. So. I'm a fan of his approach. We saw him also hit backside a couple times when like the situation called for it. As an 8 hitter, like Stefan was just saying, if you can have 3 other guys hitting 30 homers, then let's go ahead and have a Punch and Judy. I mean, not that Blaze is built like a Punch and Judy, but if he can do what he's doing from the 8 hole spot, like let's keep rolling with that until it's truly figured out with whoever's next.
Yeah, and to kind of go back to your original part of where you were going with it, Stefan. I'm not looking to replace him. I'm looking to put him in a more amicable position to succeed. And what I mean by that is that I believe that he's more of a platoon, a weak side platoon hitter than he is an everyday contributor, right? So you look at the numbers against left-handed pitching. He's got an 816 OPS, a 222 ISO, and he's a 122 WRC plus hitter. He's 22% above league average. Against right-handed pitching this season, he's got a 547 OPS, no power to speak of, and a 47 WRC plus. So while I don't see him necessarily as someone who is an everyday contributor, that does not mean that I do not see a role or a future long-term for him as a perfect complement to an Alec Burleson, let's say. Or, again, if they were to decide to elevate a Nolan Gorman, and there is a certain specific pitcher on the mound that day that is very fastball changeup heavy, something that a profile that he has traditionally struggled with, that'd be a great way to, mix Blaze Jordan into that spot. I think that there is a better way to utilize him in the future, and Gabe, to your point, I guess I'm just going to go around the room here and kind of fire back as I was having fired upon me. Gabe, to your point, yes, I see Blaze Jordan as a higher potential long-term solution, but I do not think that he is the long-term solution at third base. I do believe that Jesus Baez is the most likely long-term solution at third base for the Cardinals going forward. But how do you get from where we are now to Jesus Baez's debut? Maybe beginning of 2028 perhaps is legitimate. Blaze Jordan could be an acceptable, kind of bridge player to that point, and then once Jesus Baez ascends, you kind of move Blaze Jordan into that somewhat platoon role. I think that's adequate, but I think in terms of 2026, it may not be utilizing the spot of third base to its maximized potential with a Nolan Gorman and his power potential and the adjustments that he's made. Now, granted, everyone can disagree with me on that perspective, and that's totally fine. I have no problem arguing in the minority. It's somewhere I tend to live in this spectrum, which is completely fine. And then Scott, you've got great numbers. I got nothing for you on that. If he comes through and with runners in scoring position, if he does the little things well, and it kind of allows you to trickle things along, I'm just going to concede to you that it's a point well made, and I got nothing for you. Now,
I think, so the only thing I would just say about the platoon is they've already kind of platooned Blaze Jordan.
Correct. They've already started to.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if we're following that logic on going by positional importance and platooning guys strictly based on their matchups, Alec Burleson wouldn't be hitting against lefties ever. So that's kind of the difficult question: is do we give them time to figure it out, or do we just go based on the platoon? And there's not enough of a sample size to see with Blaze Jordan if he can handle his own against righties, because he hasn't had a ton of opportunities yet. Mm-hmm. So I think again, you're right. There are a lot of things that the Cardinals could do. I'm just not sure that Nolan Gorman is the answer to fix those problems. I think there might be pieces down the road where you could do a straight platoon at third base, and the defensive flexibility that these guys have to play multiple positions is going to be really valuable for this team moving forward. But I wouldn't get too caught up in the metrics of righty versus lefty, especially considering that this team does not have a whole lot of depth in the infield and really organizationally, which is so strange because they used to, and we used to have all left-handed outfielders. Now we have a ton of infielders, and we have a ton of outfielders that are right-handed with power, and now some infielders, not a whole lot, that can come and make an impact.
That's another reason why I think that an Alec Burleson extension long-term makes a lot of sense, because when you look at the immediacy, there is a developing lack of left-handed presence in the lineup, but that's kind of getting off the topic. To the Alec Burleson of it all, the first 2 years of his career, he showed he wasn't really that great at hitting left-handed pitching. Last season, he showed an improvement. This year, it took another step back, and we're seeing it rebound again. So I think that it may be a little bit different of a conversation, just slightly different, only because he's shown it in the past. Now, I get the argument that Blaze Jordan has not shown it at the big league level, and he hasn't been given enough opportunity to show it yet. But I also think that the Cardinals are now. And they've kind of been talking about this on the radio here recently, is like, this is the first time this season where we're starting to see the Cardinals a little bit in between do they push for a playoff spot and try to win every game, or do they, weigh development and give guys opportunity, experience, exposure, and obviously those two things are always going to be continuous threads. But, I think they're like with the Jimmy Crooks at bat, where Ollie, said that he was debating between, doing that and pinch hitting with Brian Torres. So clearly the Cardinals are trying to balance both of giving guys runway and opportunity while also trying to do the best they can to win as many games as possible currently. So it all kind of factors into, I think, that conversation where they're a little bit caught in between as a result of their surprising, late season push that they're kind of on right now, and great start that they got off to. Make no mistake, I'm thrilled that they are in the position that they are in. I think this is an enviable position to be in. You're in the first year of a self-imposed rebuild, and you're still in the thick of a playoff race. This is incredible, right? And so I continue to wonder what the benefit is, and not only from developing these young players, but also where the Cardinals are at right now, financially speaking. They should be motivated, at least I would think, to get as many wins, to get as many fans' eyes on the game, to get as many subscriptions and money flowing through while they have the attention of St. Louis. And so I wonder how much that also, not that it's they're on Ollie for doing that, but I wonder how much the organization is like, we really would like you to continue winning because it's best for business.
Yeah, of course. I mean, baseball is one of the few sports where your draft position really only matters if you're in like the top 7 picks. So nobody really tanks intentionally, and even teams that are aware that they're not going to be very good still try to win at the end of the year. They're trying to win every single game. But there is a larger conversation, Jake, and you made a great point about Jimmy Crooks in particular. He's a guy that's 24 years of age. He has a chance to tie the game with runners second and third and 1 out. And you can take the bat out of his hands and pretty much say, we don't trust you, and destroy his confidence that way. Or you give him the chance to have a huge moment when he's been scuffling with 1 out, and maybe that turns something around for him. So the risk return with another batter on deck, and you can use Torres with 2 outs, which they ended up doing, and it didn't work, but the risk return there is pretty obvious. You go and you say, all right, we know we want a lefty up there. We're not going to pinch hit for another lefty because we don't want to destroy this kid's confidence. We're going to give him a chance to try and come through, and if he doesn't, at least we can say we gave him the opportunity. So he can make adjustments from that moving forward, and Jimmy's a really, really hard worker and a really good guy. Mm-hmm. So who knows what his role is going to be in the future. But I stand by Ollie Marmol's decision there, as interesting as it is. But there is a balance between trying to develop while also trying to win. But I think those two things are going to happen simultaneously, because as these players learn how to play and are loose and are fun, rather than having some veterans telling them, hey, this is how you need to play, this is how I do it, and feeling the stress of needing to do things the way that one of the greatest third basemen in the history of the game has done it, or Sonny Gray and his intensity, or Wilson Contreras, it makes it difficult for these young guys to learn how to be themselves at the major league level. So we're seeing the benefits of a young team this year.
Yeah, and your colleague, I don't know if I call him your colleague, Derek Gould of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, he was on 101 ESPN last week and was talking about this situation that arose with the Jimmy Crooks stuff, and he brought up the point that, whether they did or didn't pinch hit for him could have been a learning opportunity, to where what you're telling Jimmy is, if you had pinch hit for him is, hey, you haven't performed, right? You haven't earned this opportunity to take advantage of a high leverage situation, and to where either or, you could look at it as not being a wrong answer, because one way or another, either the player gets the opportunity to go up and have success, or failure has the opportunity, or the player should be motivated by, I haven't done my job, enough. I'm going to continue to keep my head down, keep moving, and try to earn those opportunities further. So it could be one or the other, realistically, but I think you laid it out really well. I just wanted to throw that devil's advocate opinion in there.
Yeah, I think it's totally on par. And Derek does such a good job. So it makes sense. And again, it's very difficult to be the manager of a team like this. And Ollie's done such a nice job. Heim has done a really nice job manipulating the roster and finding ways for this team to grow.
The last batter, and we're already kind of running over the time limit that I had kind of mentioned, Stefan. I apologize, but it's been a great conversation.
It's been so much fun.
The last batter I want to touch on tonight before we wrap up is Jordan Walker. I find Walker's recent stretch to be incredibly encouraging. In seasons past, if the kind of fluky power that dried up, and we have numbers to sustain that, some of the power in the past was a little bit of a fluke, then so did the production altogether, right? And then hitting his second home run since the All-Star break today, and this was his first multi-extra base hit game. He added a double earlier in the game as well. This is his first multi-extra base hit game since June 5th against Cincinnati. So it's been over 2 months since he's had, multiple strikes of impact in the game in terms of extra base hit. If the Cardinals are able to get if we're assuming that he's starting to round back into form again, he's about to go on this next stretch. If the Cardinals are able to get a borderline MVP candidate level production from Jordan Walker the rest of the way, or for an extended stretch at least, even if it's not all the way through the rest of the season, I have a hard time seeing how the Cardinals don't make the playoffs, and that just kind of is reality to me. I realize that, a lot of other things can go wrong in this, but, if Jordan Walker reestablishes himself over the next few weeks as that MVP candidate we saw through the first couple of months, I would have to think that a lot of fringe playoff teams that are directly ahead of the Cardinals are going to be very nervous about that.
Of course they would be. I mean, I asked earlier today, does Jordan Walker win the Silver Slugger in right field? I mean, who else would compete? Corbin Carroll, maybe. He's as cold as he's been in a long time. Juan Soto is playing pretty much the majority of his season in left field. Who else in the National League could compete with Jordan Walker for the Silver Slugger?
James Wood? Is he right
James
field?
Wood playing left field a lot,
Yeah.
and he's been injured. And he doesn't. I don't think he has 88 RBIs. I know that he has more home runs, but Walker he's the biggest success story of the season. He's the comeback player of the year for sure. I don't think there's really any conversation in baseball about who the comeback player of the year in the National League is, but he has done all the work defensively. Offensively, he's made strides, and I think you can attribute some of that success not just to his own work, but back to Josh Baez. And we'll see that. He's going to see more strikes because pitchers are not going to want to face Baez. Burleson is going to see more strikes because they realize, wait a minute, if I have a runner on first base that moves to second and I've gotten Burleson out, I've got to attack Walker. If I pitch away from him, then I have him first and second in front of Baez. So there are going to be so many different things that we see play out. I bet I would obviously you don't bet on baseball, but I would venture to guess that Jordan Walker will go on another torrid pace probably in the next few weeks of the season, just because of the fact that pitchers are going to have to pitch to him differently because the number 5 spot is occupied by somebody that's really a big threat.
Yeah, so the only name that I could come up with while you were talking was the guy who played opposite to him today is Seiya Suzuki, is probably the other name that's probably right there in that conversation with him. Now, I don't know that he overtakes him. I don't know. I haven't looked at a comparable, but I would think that that's probably his closest contender. To me, it seems like Walker's was dealing with some wear and tear from the season, having those couple days off earlier this month from some knee soreness, and if his throttling down in production up until recently was a result of kind of the long, grinding, enduring season and a young player learning how to adapt to it at the MLB level for the first time, truly, because you have to think about the seasons prior where he's being sent down, he's taking weeks off with hitting coaches. It's not the same, even though it is still a different grind, and we eliminate that whole conversation where it's just the home run derby screwed him up. Then that has to be encouraging for Cardinals fans as they continue, this important road trip and some hitter-friendly parks coming up. I think that, Jordan Walker will have all of the favorable conditions to put up some really gaudy numbers, assuming that this kind of continues what he has established over the last few days.
Yeah, certainly. And just looked up quickly, Seiya Suzuki does not have the same amount of home runs. He has 3 less. He has 15 less RBIs. He has a worse batting average and a lower OPS. So Walker's beating him in every category. Oh, and by the way, I'm not sure it matters, but I'm sure PCA is going to win the Silver Slugger in center field. That may affect the fact that they don't want to put 2 teammates next to each other on the Silver Slugger ballot. So I think that he's right now got to be the front runner for that particular award. And it's fun to think about, Walker could win the Silver Slugger. And Weatherholt could win Gold Gloves. You could have Michael McGreevy could win the Gold Glove as a pitcher. So, these are really cool things to think about for this team and all the hardware that they could be bringing in. But I'm interested in hearing Gabe and Scott's thoughts. I've been just jabbering the last 10 minutes. So what they've thought about Jordan Walker and his final stretch of the year.
Well, as a proud owner of one of his home run balls, I've never been a bigger Jordan Walker fan. From the start of the year, getting to talk to him in winter warm-up, I've said it, he had every right to be kind of poopy to the media. People have been talking bad on him, and he came in with a smile, greeted everybody, answered every single question. And then to see it happen the way that it's been doing with the home run derby, I think at that point, no matter what happened the second half of Jordan Walker's season, the home run derby was kind of like the I don't want to say full circle moment, but the all-encompassing moment that this truly was his breakout year. And then you look at the fact that even if he does struggle, he's still hitting 280. He's still doing things that, we never thought that he would be able to do after these last couple of years. So I am on the train of let's go ahead and bring him to the table for an extension. And, to think that he's going to be a 30-20 guy for the next 5 years is a lot of fun.
No, yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of, it feels like the home run derby exemplified this, but nothing phases him. Like, I don't know that any kind of failure, sustained failure, is going to affect him, because not many hitters go through what he went through the last 2 years and then come out on the other side as an all-star, really. And that's got to say a little bit about like his ability going forward, to where he should be able to adjust to any obstacle that comes his way. And he's only 24 too, right? Am I crazy?
That's
He's
right.
still 24. I feel like we've been talking about him for 10 years. And any kind of extension, that's a lot of years before he turns 30, which is, you still would expect hitters to be good at 30. So, yeah, I would be curious about the numbers, but I would certainly, if they announced a Jordan Walker extension tomorrow, I'd be pretty excited about it. That's for sure.
So Derek Gould, again, he's terrific, so I'm going to keep referencing him. Went on 101 ESPN. It was right around the All-Star break. He mentioned that some of what he's kind of, I don't want to mischaracterize it, what he's heard, what he's researched, I don't know, but what he comped, what he thought Jordan Walker could potentially get was similar to the extension that Nolan Arenado signed with Colorado, which was 8 for $260, and that was kind of where they were looking at. Now, whether or not they give it to Walker, whether or not Walker wants to take that and accept it, I'd have a hard time turning it down, but at the same time, I don't know. But that's just, again, our friend Derek Gould, who's very good, very knowledgeable, very involved and all-knowing, mostly knowing, I'm sure he's not all-knowing, has a lot better of an idea than we probably do. And if that's the number he's throwing out, then that's kind of my North Star, my uninformed North Star that I'm following is probably the direction that it would go. So,
how did he land at that comp, though? Because they're not the same type of player. One's a defense first.
You would have to go back.
I think that number is from and Derek does a really, really good job. But to me, that number feels very aggressive. Like, it feels like a lot of money to be giving a guy that has struggled as much as Walker has. And you also factor in Nolan Arenado did not struggle at all, really, in the early goings of his career. He was an all-star pretty much from the jump, and a Platinum Glove Award winner, and the best defender that maybe the game's ever seen at third base. Within like 3 years of arriving in Colorado. Oh, and by the way, his offensive numbers were going to remain consistent because he plays at Coors Field. So very different conversation than Walker. And to be fair, I thought JJ was going to get more money than he got. So Weatherholt signed a pretty team-friendly deal, and I think if you're Jordan Walker, and I'm sure the ownership knows this, because they're great owners, and you want to obviously do right by the player, but you obviously also want to make good financial investments. Walker's going to be aware of his own struggles and will probably accept a number that gives him that financial security, because a year and a half ago, really even going into spring training, a lot of people were wondering, is he going to make the team, himself included? So if he can get a number that is going to set up generational wealth while also taking off some of the pressure of saying, hey, I've got to I got to fight for my keep every single day, I think that we can find a number that's fair. I think the number is probably a little bit closer to 8 years, 175 to 200, rather than 250 plus. But I haven't heard that. I just think looking at it from what this team has been willing to spend in the past versus also kind of getting burned by long-term money, they're probably going to be conservative, and why wouldn't they be?
Sure. Yeah, no, I totally fair. And I want to also pass along that, like, I'm doing a very poor job at conveying what Derek had said. Obviously, you can go to BK and Ferrario. We've had BK on several times. You can go to their show. You can find all of their podcast links. You can go back and find where Derek had set this, and he laid it out very well. Much better than I'm doing currently, unprepared. So, kind of going back to PCA getting the Silver Slugger, and here I was thinking that Nathan Church was that close. Stefan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Before we go, where can fans go to follow you at?
Well, my X, the Everything app, formerly Twitter, is just my name, at Stefan Caray. I like to put out some fun stuff. I see all the stuff that Scott puts out there all the time, and it's just great interacting with everybody. And then my Instagram's just Stefan_Caray, which I really don't do a whole lot on there. I'll do like my proof of life update like once a year when I have pictures, but that's pretty much it. And I'll be on the call when the Orioles come to town on the next homestand. So yeah, that'll be the next time I'm doing games. It'll be my first full series at Busch Stadium, which I'm stoked about. So you guys are awesome. You're so knowledgeable, and I love how passionate you guys are, man. It's really nice and fun. I hop onto a lot of podcasts. A lot of people are baseball fans, and they've looked at the Cardinals from kind of far away. So you kind of have to hold their hand through what's going on. You guys have all the stats, you have all the info, and you work your asses off, obviously. So love to come back on anytime, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Stefan. And yes, it's always great to follow all of the doings and happenings of Scott Plaza. We all truly, genuinely enjoy doing so.
Plastastic 17, right?
Mr. Plastastic 17. We're gonna rent a billboard and put it up there so everyone knows. It's gonna be the one.
Scott, where'd you pitch professionally? I want to know where'd you pitch?
I bounced around through the many indie leagues. So started in Schaumburg, went through the Sonoma Stompers, got to play with Kelsey Whitmore and Stacy Piagno out there, which was
really?
Absolutely incredible. Went to Gary, Indiana, went to Dallas, and got released for a 57-year-old, what is his name? Rafael Palmeiro. So he almost ended my professional career, but luckily I got to face him a little bit later in that year. So that plus shoulder and elbow surgery, and now I'm a teacher.
That dang UCL is what cost you, not Rafael Palmeiro. Don't be fair to yourself.
This close to being Roy Hobbs. You were this close.
Almost had it. Just ran out of time.
Scott almost won the Silver Slugger over PCA 2. It was that close. Scott, good to see you again, man. Thanks for coming back, and we'll look forward to having you back on next week. Gabe, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it, man, and as always. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Viva Alberto's podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, and hit that subscribe button so you're notified every Monday morning. For Gabe Simons and Scott Plaza, my name is Jake Wood, and we'll talk to you all next week and bring you more great Cardinals content. Have a great day, St. Louis, and let's go Cards.